The following program is an opinion program. The opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of this program are not the opinions of the management, staff, and advertisers of this station. Please direct all criticism, concern, and adulation to the hosts of this program.
Well, welcome to Alabama Politics. This week, I am Dale Jackson. I'm a radio talk show host. You can hear my shows Monday through Friday from 5 to 9 a.m. on WVNN in Huntsville, then from 10 until 11 on Talk 99.5 in Birmingham and News Radio 1440 a.m. in Montgomery. Then a replay of that from 3 until 4 on the UMP in Huntsville. Usually with me is Mecca Music. She is the CEO of 256today.com. Smart news for smart people, like a smart thing to do with Tim Walz not to show up to the debate, but he did. And Mecca did not show up here. That may have been a smart move as well. Emily Hayes filling in for her. Emily is my co-host on WVNN from 5 until 9 a.m. She'll be with us today. We'll be talking with her about a bunch of different issues. We'll be joined by Matt Murphy out of WTN, and we'll talk to him about some stuff going on in the state of Alabama and beyond. And then I've got a parting shot for you as well. There's a lot happening, a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and do it right now. Let's get to the 2-minute warning. All right, Emily, let's talk here for a quick second about how bad Tim Walz was. I mean, is that really the big takeaway here out of all of this? Or maybe it was how good J.D. Vance was. I watched this thing and I thought to myself in the beginning, Tim Walz is doing okay, he's doing all right, but the wheels quickly came off. Of course, I'm the same guy that watched that debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and I said, he did okay, but the obvious consensus was that Donald Trump got destroyed in that debate. Now, what does this all mean? I don't know. We'll get into all of that here in just a second. But Tim Walz definitely looked out of his depth. Emily, how bad was Tim Walz here?
It was not good for him. It was not good for him. And they had tried to manage everyone's expectations of his performance ahead of time, saying, well, he's going to be nervous. So cut him some slack, be ready for that or whatever. But he never really rose to the occasion like J.D. Vance did.
Yeah, J.D. Vance sort of made it clear. I think the thing that I found interesting about this is he was going to focus on Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. He wasn't going to say a word about Tim Walz. Tim Walz was a stand-in for Kamala Harris. And the point that I think he kept trying to make was, why haven't they done this already? Why haven't they done this already? Why haven't they done this already? And I think that sort of resonates with people because Kamala Harris and even Tim Walz in this situation, they're taking positions that are really foreign to Democrat orthodoxy. Like their actual thought process on immigration is not secure the border, stop people from coming. We're going to do everything we can. It's just let them in and we'll sort it out. That the country needs to take in as many people as they can, and that's just basically the way it is. Tim Walz ran into a weird moment on China where he was just like, well, that's just what I said. It's like, so you lied. And he's like, okay. And it's just like,
I'm not good with times.
Yeah, and he tried that before in an interview where they did their little joint interview where he was the emotional support vice president. And he just said, well, sometimes I say things that are wrong and I just do things that aren't really what they are. And it's just like, I'm not sure that's the best answer. They've had all this time to prepare for this. They were right to kind of set the expectation. I was amused to watch in the immediate aftermath of the debate. It was like, oh my God, this was terrible. And now as time has passed, it's been like, he did okay. So was it terrible or did he do okay?
I mean, I think he just was perfectly adequate.
Okay.
Perfectly adequate.
Adequate. And maybe people didn't expect J.D. Vance to be, I hate to say this, I don't think this is the right word, charming? Like sort of like.
Well, I think they expected him to come out and be an attack dog for Trump, and then he wasn't. He was more like, this guy is cordial.
I'm not sure charming's not the right word. That's the right way to frame it. Okay, Emily, thank you very much. Let's move on. Let's talk about this strike and the impact on Alabama. The first time I heard about this strike getting ready to go down, I read a news story and it said a $100 million impact on Alabama every single day. And I was like, that seems like a lot. Well, it was. It's actually $10 million in impact every day on Alabama, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's not a big deal. That absolutely is a big deal, and it impacts a lot of different industries when we're talking about the great state of Alabama, automotive, aerospace, and all sorts of other industries as well, and plus stuff coming in. So not only stuff going out, but stuff coming in. Then there's the election that you got to talk about. Prices could potentially go up. We could have those problems right before the election as well. The best thing that could happen is this thing get resolved here relatively soon. But as people hear about this, and this is the thing that I find interesting, Now, on one hand, you have the union workers who are saying, we want a 77% raise. And the company's like, hell no, we're not doing that. How about 50? And most Americans look at that and go, yeah, okay, that sounds pretty good. One of the reasons, Emily, and I think this is why it affects the election, one of the things I find interesting about this is they themselves specifically mentioned inflation. Like, they're talking about, now, the Teamster boss is also, or the union boss is also saying, I'll collapse the economy, which is not something that gets people on your side. But they also said inflation is the main thing. That's an election point, right? Like that's something people have been talking about in an election, and now this is in the forefront. What kind of danger is this to Harris and Walz?
I think it's a huge issue for them coming up, because one thing to consider is, yeah, it's October, but people are already looking ahead to the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, and stuff like that. And if there's any kind of impediment on getting goods to folks, that's a major problem. And it doesn't help when they cite inflation as the issue, and the biggest issue for the Democrats is inflation.
Yeah, I think it's been a big issue for them. And I think one of the things that I find most interesting, at least about this part of the conversation, is all over the country, if there is any impact. Like, I read something today, and it's like, it shouldn't have an issue on vacations, cruise lines, stuff like that, until it does. It shouldn't have an issue on gas prices and things like that
until it does.
And I thought that's a pretty interesting way to frame it, because that basically gives everyone a little bit of a cushion to see what's going to happen. Joe Biden said something I found very interesting. He said, I don't believe in the Taft-Hartley Act. And I thought to myself, this isn't like believing in like a fairy or something. It exists. He just doesn't want to use it. And what that would say is, here's 80 days, you guys get back to work and start talking. They're not even talking. So there's sort of that problem as well. Will Biden be pushed into enacting that and saying get back to work?
I would think so. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have very, very angry Americans when their goods are delayed.
Right before an election.
Right before an election. And he doesn't need to do anything to hurt his party any further than he already has.
Yeah, I think that's true. All right, moving on. Let's talk about voter suppression here for a moment, or should I say the lack of voter suppression here for a moment. This is something that we hear every election cycle. There is voter suppression. Everyone's being suppressed. They don't want people to vote. They're not letting them vote. And basically at this point, anything short of them coming to your house and saying, would you fill this out? Don't worry, I'll fill this out for you. I'll take it and do all these things for you. Anything short of that is considered voter suppression. Having one day of voting, voter suppression. Having rules for mail-in ballots, voter suppression. Checking signatures, voter suppression. What's lacking is, of course, the actual people who are having their vote suppressed. Those are the people that are actually lacking. And I don't mean like the oblique, like we're just like, hey, this group of people are having their vote suppressed. I'm talking about John Smith. Like, get Stacey Abrams out. Have a press conference with her. Use the wide-angle lens. Get her out there and say, okay, John Smith is the guy who had his vote suppressed. Why do we never see that? And because we never see that, how can we continue pushing this narrative as if it is a real thing, that there is a group of people out there saying, we don't want anyone to vote?
Well, they've got to make it real. You've got to put a real face on it to get people emotionally invested in pushing something across the finish line.
Shamari Figures is running it out there in District 2. He's saying, like, this is a problem here. You're hearing it on the national stage that there are people who don't want other people to vote because they're asking for voter ID and things of that nature.
Yeah, but how deep is that pool? Like, it's like they stand in the shallow end, and that's as far as they can get. They do just the talking points of, there's voter suppression, it's this. It never goes any deeper into, these are the individual people that are affected, and this is who we're fighting for.
And I really want to see that. Like, I would think that person would be one of the most famous people on the planet.
Probably.
I mean, you trot that person, they'd get a Stephen Colbert shot. I mean, they bring him out there, it's like, you got your vote suppressed? Yes. I went into the polling place, and they said, I can't vote, and then here's why they said I can't vote. Boom, 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 boom. But I was registered. I mean, in Alabama, they have a pretty good system. If you go to the polling place and there's an issue with your ballot, you file, you vote in a provisional ballot, and then they go back and they look, and you try to make the argument that you are legitimately there. I've not heard any problems with this. Mm-hmm. This is happening on any level. Doug Jones has been challenged, and he's like a big pusher of this. Terry Sewell as well. Now Shamari Figures are pushing these things. It's like, just show us one. Mm-hmm. I would love to talk about it. I've been wrong. I like saying I'm wrong sometimes. I was wrong. I like to admit that I'm wrong, because then it gives me a little bit of cover for being wrong all these other times. Like, I'll just admit it if I'm wrong. So please, prove me wrong. Tell me who's having their vote suppressed. Let's have that conversation. Moving on. Let's talk about Israel and Iran here for a moment. And this is another issue. Last night, this week in the debate, the first question was about this particular issue. Why? Well, because the day before, or I guess that day actually, you had missiles being fired from Iran into Israel. Now, we've now seen missiles coming from the north. We've seen them coming from the Houthi rebels in Yemen. We're seeing them now directly come from Iran for the second time. And that doesn't even take into account the fact that while this was happening, there were other people that came across the border and killed 8 people in a terrorist attack while this was all going on as well. So Israel obviously under attack from multiple angles here. And the question is, does it explode into the broader region? I'm not so sure, Emily, because I look at this and Iran's like, look what we did. And Israel's like, yeah, look what you did. They're like, yeah, but we did it and you better not respond. It's like, but what did you do? It's like, well, we fired you some missiles. It's like, yeah, and the U.S. shot a lot of them down. We shot them down with the Iron Dome. We did all these things. And there wasn't this, like, mass casualty event. Now they're saying, well, we'll go after the infrastructure. It's like, what are you just firing rockets into the, what are you shooting at now? I mean, what exactly are you trying to do? So will we see this explode into a broader conflict? And if it does, and back to the election stuff, Tim Walz was like, in this conversation, he's like, they've provided stability. The Biden-Harris has provided stability. I'm like, where? Where's that? So does this explode? And if it does, what happens?
I think if it is going to explode, it's going to explode after the election. I think they're going to see who's in charge before they ratchet it up and escalate. Because
Iran doesn't want Trump. It's been proven
that Iran said the U.S. needs to stay out of it.
Yeah.
Well, big words.
Yeah. But if you do continue this, and if Israel is ever in any real danger, which they are not right now, if they were ever in any real danger, like existential danger, like the fear of them existing, America will. I think that's the one place in the world right now where America would put boots on the ground, no matter who's president. Taiwan, they could take it. I can tell you right now, we're not doing anything about that because China makes all our crap. They're not doing that. We made it very clear we're not putting boots on the ground in Ukraine and all these other things. That's not happening. This is the one place where I think that might happen. And maybe it happens after the election. But at this particular point in time, Iran, I think, is just kind of playing games here a little bit because they know they have to do something to placate the people in their country. And I think they have a hard time getting that information that none of it was successful. And so what they say is we've launched 180 missiles at the evil little Satan. And then that's sort of the end of the story. And we forget that they were all shot down and stuff like that. So I think that kind of happens there. Emily Hayes here with us. I am Dale Jackson. You're watching Alabama Politics This Week. Matt Murphy will join us next. Stay tuned.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for University Kia. This is my son Grant. He's a busy guy. Chess, piano, basketball, wrestling, baseball, you name it. There's probably some stuff that I missed that my wife will be mad about, but here's the thing. It's important to have reliable transportation. And my friends at University Kia, they take great care of me. I've been driving Sportages my entire life. My wife drives a Telluride now, and it is the perfect vehicle for the busy family. Folks, University Kia, let them take care of you like they've taken care of my family. That's University Kia. Learn more at universitykia.com.
Tom, Grant and Dale Jackson sent you.
Want fun, safe, intelligent fitness programming? Want to build muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, drastically improved range of motion and mobility, and learn proper nutrition to fuel your life with energy and emotional health? Well, come find out why Iron Tribe Fitness is ranked one of the top 5 fitness programs in America. Come find out why personal training and intentionally working on your current movement patterns individually is not only important, it's just another core value that separates Iron Tribe Fitness from other fitness facilities.
To learn how to get your 2-week free pass, go to irontribefitness.com.
Attention! This is a public notice from the Social Security Disability Helpline. If you're one of the millions of Americans who are disabled and unable to work, you may be eligible for disability benefits from Social Security. Receiving benefits is your right. If you suffer from physical or mental disability, whether you're applying for the first time or you've already been denied, we can help. We'll evaluate your situation and deal with Social Security on your behalf. Best of all, there's no fee until you receive your benefits. Remember, we only get paid if you win your case. There are many reasons and conditions that may make you eligible for disability benefits. Many of them you may not be aware of. So if you're disabled and unable to work, call now to get started with your free, no-obligation consultation.
Call 877-744-0750. That's 877-744-0750. 877-744-0750.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. With me this week instead of Mecca Music is Emily Hayes. She is my co-host on WVNN in Huntsville. And one of my former coworkers, Matt Murphy, is with us, WTN. We appreciate him joining us here. Matt, we've been following a lot of different stories this week. And I got to believe the biggest story is the VP debate. We've talked a lot about that already today. I think Tim Walz got drugged by J.D. Vance, but as you watched it this week, what were your thoughts?
Well, my initial takeaway was, if I'm on a national stage where millions of people are watching me and another person on that stage for 90 minutes, if I'm the guy that walks off the stage 90 minutes later, not having to admit that I'm a liar and have been for decades, then that's probably pretty good for me. And that's what happened to J.D. Vance, right? I mean, Tim Walz was exposed. He was not ready for the question regarding the Tiananmen Square comments that he's made over the years. There were many other places that we could expose him as someone that is a little short of telling the truth about his own personal experiences, and his answers left a lot to be desired. So that goes to character. I think J.D. Vance did really well kind of honing in on some of the more contentious issues and softening those issues for the middle-of-the-road voter. I'm talking about issues involving immigration, illegal immigration, legal immigration, and otherwise. And the abortion issue, I thought J.D. Vance did a really good job answering that question. I'll give you another example, climate change. He conceded, let's say climate is already changing. That still doesn't mean that we should not invest in energy production here at home. So I think it was an absolute win for J.D. Vance. I think he shows never Trump people what the future looks like for the Republican Party, and I think that could potentially swing some voters over to the Trump-Vance ticket.
You know, climate change and abortion seem to be like the two bigger issues they wanted to discuss at length. Ukraine did not come up. Israel got a little bit. The economy was sprinkled in here and there. Immigration came up only for the reason to say Kamala Harris isn't actually letting people in. And I'm like, Matt, you remember this. They got a forklift and went and lifted barbed wire up, the federal government did, and let people come underneath it that Texas had put down there. So the moderators, you know, we're media guys, we're talk radio guys, and we complain about the media all the time. But, you know, them looking at the camera somberly and saying, Kamala Harris is not letting illegal immigrants into the country.
Well, Dale, it reminds me of this nonsense when you say, well, obviously Kamala was the border czar. We see story after story during that time period where Joe Biden says, yes, I'm going to give her control of getting to root causes. But because Joe Biden never said the two words border czar, anytime that you and I bring it up, people in the mainstream media, leftists in the mainstream media, want to say, oh, no, she never was that. She never said that. Well, it's just nonsense. And anybody that had a lived experience through that time and observed politics knows exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to whitewash her time as vice president. I think, too, Dale, that the fact that J.D. Vance did not mention Joe Biden once, and every time he referred to the last 3.5 years, he referred to it as the Harris administration. I think it's masterful because he's placing her in the office, and he reminded the American people repeatedly, and I think Trump did it once, but he did not do it nearly enough. They are in office now. Why are they not enacting these policies that they think are so great right now?
I agree, and that was one thing that stood out to me during the debate was that J.D. Vance really took that opportunity to hammer home, she's been there and she hasn't done anything. Why is it going to change? And I feel like Trump kind of missed that opportunity during his presidential debate. Do you think that the Democrats coming out ahead of time and saying Tim's nervous about the debate, do you think that helped manage the expectations of their base to not expect a whole lot from him to make it okay that he was perfectly adequate?
Yeah, I mean, Emily, it might have managed the left's anticipation of what they should expect, but I think it was actually truthful, and I think that was evidenced by the first 5 minutes of the debate. I mean, Tim Walz looked. I mean, I've been on those stages where you're not really comfortable. And by the way, it's a product of their own making. because they've hidden the guy. I mean, when you ding J.D. Vance on the things that he said about Donald Trump, for example, he goes in these platforms over and over again repeatedly. He's been in those town halls. He's been on CNN. He's been in those environments, and he's answered this question repeatedly, so he's ready for it. They've hidden Tim Walz, and so it's almost, the result that they created, in as much as because they're hiding him, he's not grown accustomed to giving those answers. So I think his nerves were evident at the beginning of the debate. And did it temper expectations? Sure, but I don't think it helped him with undecided voters.
Well, he's not been in war with a weapon of war, and he was never a head football coach, so he never had the time to get those nerves out. This is another example here where it's hard. And you're right, they expose him as a liar. I want to talk about immigration here for a second. Matt, you may remember this from your time in talk radio in Alabama. Remember the Hammond-Beeson immigration bill? And it basically said, we're not going to go and round up randos, and we're not going to be checking, under every nook and cranny for people who are Hispanic. But if you come into an interaction with law enforcement, well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at your immigration status. Chris Elliott of Josephine has said, hey, a state legislator down in Josephine, he made it very clear. He said, hey, we need to revisit this thing. Look what's happened in Texas. They're actually talking about this. We have a friendly Supreme Court. You remember when that bill passed, all the vitriol around House Bill 56. What do you think about going back and revisiting that in the next legislative session in Alabama?
Well, that is the very definition of the type of quote-unquote mass deportation that the left wants to vilify even today in the national news cycle, right? But you're right. Senator Scott Beeson was called everything but a child of God. He was called a racist. He was called a xenophobe because he suggested that we should give local authority the ability to ascertain whether or not people are here legally or illegally, and if they're here illegally, to hand them over to the proper authorities to get them deported. I think if you do that now, you're going to see a lot of potentially self-deportation, but you'll also see a lot of local authorities taking the reins where Immigration and Customs Enforcement either does not have the ability, doesn't have the manpower, or doesn't have the thumbs up from the administration to do what they ought to be doing, and that is sending illegal aliens back to their country of origin.
Staying on the issue of illegal immigration, I mentioned the fact check from the media where they're like, well, Kamala Harris is not letting people in, except for all the examples that we actually have that she actually is. We have that coming up. What I found interesting about that is as that conversation is taking place, currently we have in Alabama and beyond a bunch of people following that Cuban, Nicaraguan, Haiti, Venezuela plan where they're coming in and saying, hey, we're here, and they're saying, get in here and go to Alabama. All that stuff is happening, and I think that they overplayed that. I think that really bothers people, and to pretend that it's not a problem just because they can't prove, like they don't have video of a guy eating dogs. I mean, they're saying that none of this stuff is happening, like the real problems that are here. Let's accept that the dog eating isn't happening. Okay, let's just pretend that there's never been an instance of this that we can talk about. The other real impact of this, I think, has a lot to do with sort of the immigration issue on this election, and saying that, and them saying Harris had nothing to do with this. Nobody believes any of that. This is a real issue in Alabama and elsewhere.
Well, here's the reality of what's happening. I think J.D. Vance laid it out very clearly when he was debating Nora O'Donnell, or one of the moderators, as opposed to debating Tim Walz, and they tried to fact-check him in real time after saying that they weren't going to do that, and that is this. That the Biden administration, the Harris administration, they saw the optics of these individuals flooding the zone on the southern border, and they said, well, one, we don't want to slow down the immigration process from these third world countries. At the same time, we can't have these optics down at the Texas border and at the New Mexico border, Arizona border anymore. So let's fly them in, which is literally what they're doing from places like Haiti, like Cuba. We're flying them into the country, and all they have to do is go on a phone that we provide them. They go through the process on the phone, claim asylum on the phone, and they get their quote-unquote paperwork, which is why the CBS moderators were able to say, well, they're here legally. They're only here legally because the Biden administration did an end around from the southern border jump to give them quote-unquote paperwork when they shouldn't be here in the first place. And I thought Vance did a really good job of illustrating that to the people. One thing that he didn't say that I will say, that the reports are now that we have migrated 4% of the entire Haitian population into the United States of America during the Biden-Harris administration. 4% of the entire population of that country in places like Sylacauga, Springfield, and others. That's very damning to the to the effort on the part of the political left and damning to their political prospects.
And it's never going to get better there if you continue to take people out of there. And
no, that's exactly right.
And they're never going back. Last question here. October 1st, this may be something that Matt's very attuned with. On October 1st, Pornhub started blocking the state of Alabama, and they put up a note that said, hey, we need to send an ID here if you want to view this website. People went from looking at Pornhub and seeing that, and then going to the Alabama legislature's website and saying, who is my state legislator? Then emailing them, giving them their real name, and saying, I want to look at porn. Have you ever done anything that embarrassing?
I would love to say to you that no, I've never done anything quite as embarrassing as that. I'm sure that there have been times in my 51 years on this planet that I've done things similarly embarrassing, but I'm proud to tell you that in the great state of Tennessee, I have no idea whether or not you can get to Pornhub on your internet web provider. So, no, I don't know if this is happening in Tennessee, but if it's happening in Alabama, Dale, you hit me offline, and I can tell you plenty of ways that you can get around that. There's plenty of other sites that you can go to, okay?
There we go. Matt Murphy, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. We'll definitely talk with Matt Murphy soon. Emily's leaving. I'll be alone. The show's going to get much better, I promise you. That's the truth. Stay tuned. It's Alabama Politics This Week.
Want fun, safe, intelligent fitness programming? Want to build muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, drastically improved range of motion and mobility, and learn proper nutrition to fuel your life with energy and emotional health? Well, come find out why Iron Tribe Fitness is ranked one of the top 5 fitness programs in America. Come find out why personal training and intentionally working on your current movement patterns individually is not only important, it's just another core value that separates Iron Tribe Fitness from other fitness facilities.
To learn how to get your 2-week free pass, go to irontribefitness.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for University Kia. This is my son Grant. He's a busy guy. Chess, piano, basketball, wrestling, baseball, you name it. There's probably some stuff that I missed that my wife will be mad about, but here's the thing. It's important to have reliable transportation. And my friends at University Kia, they take great care of me. I've been driving Sportages my entire life. My wife drives a Telluride now, and it is the perfect vehicle for the busy family. Folks, University Kia, let them take care of you like they've taken care of my family. That's University Kia. Learn more at universitykia.com.
Tom Grant and Dale Jackson sent you.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. Thank you very much for being here. We're about to get into the party shot. We'll talk about Birmingham and police here in just a very quick second. But before we do that, let me remind you, head on over to yellowhammernews.com. Sign up for my email blast, the 7 things you should be talking about today. Those are 7 things you should be talking about that day or any day, and you'll get that in your email inbox every single morning, very, very early. Sometimes before you even get to work. Go check it out, yellowhammernews.com. Sign up for that today. Also check out columns, this show, other stuff, and other videos I do there as well. That's yellowhammernews.com. Right now, though, let's go ahead and get to that parting shot. My party shot this week is directed at Mayor Randall Woodfin of Birmingham. Hey, good job, buddy. I'm glad we can finally come around on something where we actually agree. There's going to be a big push inside the city of Birmingham and their local government to hire more police officers. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is not something that Birmingham has been trying to do for a while, but this is your actual problem. So adding resources to this is actually very smart. Focusing on it also very smart. But here's your problem. You have to recruit from outside of the city in order to bring people in here who want to actually do this job. You're going to have a hard time recruiting from inside the city. That much is very clear. But the solution here is bringing in more police officers. You have an out-of-control crime problem, and all the Glock switch bans being more illegal than they were the day before sounds great. You'll probably get that from the legislature, but it's probably not going to do anything. So the correct answer is hiring more police officers, and you guys are working on that. The individuals inside the city, the Fraternal Order of Police, they said, look, this is great, more boots on the ground, and I agree with them completely. So Birmingham hiring more police, great idea. Good job by Randall Woodfin. You should have done that before you went to the White House, and you probably should have talked about that up there instead of this other silly stuff you were doing, but I understand what your agenda is. It's a little different than everyone else's. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching and listening to Alabama Politics This Week all over the great state of Alabama. We'll talk to you soon.